Hi, my friends. Thanks for joining us today on our journey through the Bible. It's Tim, your good buddy, Bible teacher. Just happy in the service of the Lord today. I hope you are too. We're reading in Ezra, chapters 1, 2, and 3 today, starting a whole new book in the Bible, but actually it continues the story from Second Chronicles, where we were yesterday. When the Babylonians deported all the Jews, they destroyed Solomon's temple. They burned Jerusalem. It appeared as though the Jewish nation was finished, but they also had a promise from God. God had said, "For thus says the Lord, after 70 years are completed at Babylon, I will visit you and perform my good work toward you and cause you to return to this place." Jeremiah 29 and verse 10. Now, God said it would happen. That was in prophecy, but how could he keep that promise? Ezra is about to tell us how he did that. In verse 1, Ezra 1 1 says, "Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled. The Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia." Just like it was predicted by the prophet Jeremiah in 2 Chronicles 36:21, the Jews had been in exile in Babylon for 70 years, and for the oldest of them, Jerusalem was just a distant and rapidly fading memory. They probably were young children at that time, and now they're old men and women. Um, we often describe this as the return of the Jews. But keep in mind that for the great majority of those Jews who made the trip, they were not returning. They were making a move to someplace brand new. They'd been born in exile. They grew up in exile, speaking Babylonian. They had jobs in Babylon and families and probably houses and property. Um, and so they were not returning any place. They were moving to someplace brand new. No doubt they had heard stories about Zion and the great King David and how God had blessed them in the past and how this was meant to be their land, but they'd never been there. They'd never seen it themselves. But just as Jeremiah predicted, God brought his people back after all of this time, and he used this King Cyrus to do it. He gave them the permission. God put this in the mind of the king. But they also needed the means to make this trip. We're talking about 800 miles from Babylon to Jerusalem. A good part of that was over a desert. A good part of it was patrolled by warlords and the bands of criminals that would be there, highwaymen. Um, but they needed the means to do this. And God even took care of that as well. In verse 4, we see the men of this place would help him with silver and with gold and with goods. So some of the people would make the journey to Jerusalem. Some would stay where they were for a time, but everyone had a part in this move. You could either go or you can help someone else go. And those who did not feel led or able to make the journey participated in this offering that would make this possible for the group where we're going. And also, we see something interesting in verse 11. This a man with a funny name, Sheshbazzar, um, was going to bring up the implements. This individual is described as a prince of Judah, and he had the responsibility for seeing that 5,400 temple vessels, these are bowls and pans and cups, were safely transported back to Judah. During the conquest of Babylon, this large number of silver and gold items had been taken away from the temple in Jerusalem. In fact, in a final act of disrespect, King Belshazzar used them for a drunken party. That was the night that Babylon was overthrown. And perhaps leaders had learned something, because amazingly, they're still there at the time of King Cyrus, waiting for this specific moment. Well, this reminds me of another time and another promise that God made. When Jesus gathered his disciples on the Mount of Olives after the resurrection, and then he ascended up into heaven, he gave them an important promise for the angels who were there who appeared to the disciples. Acts chapter 1 and verse 11. It says, "Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall so come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven." And the early church was constantly waiting for it to happen. You see, the angels didn't say when he's coming back. But this same Jesus, in the same way, would return. And we're still waiting for that to happen today. It's been almost 2,000 years since that day, but we know it will happen. And 2,000 years is not a long time for God. But is it foolish to think so? No, I think it's entirely reasonable when we see how God has kept his word in time past, just like we read about today in Ezra chapter 1. You know, an important and a reason for the study of prophecy, and one of the things that makes it so relevant and so interesting is the simple fact that our God keeps his promises. He did it for the Jews, and he'll do it for his people today who are looking for him to return. And I don't know about you, but I'm listening for trumpets even now. And I think there are people alive today who will not die, but they'll be there when the rapture takes place. God said so. He said it will happen. He didn't say when. But anyway, we're looking forward to it. Meditate on that today, will you? Stay in the Word. Tomorrow we have just 2 chapters in our reading, Ezra chapter 4 and Ezra chapter 5. And so read those, and I'll look forward to being back with you tomorrow. Have a great day, folks.